Hey, welcome everybody. Glad that you're tuning in, and we're really, really looking forward to going over several things with you guys tonight. I'm going to try to stay on topic because we do have a lot to cover, including some really disturbing things about Ark and Epstein connections. And so I'm going to preview that for you as we get in and looking into Sidley and Yale again, kind of picking up from where we left off last week. If you have not been watching the show, okay, this is it's complicated in what we're talking about because it's when I'm talking about the cases that I'm in. Hold on real quick. When when I'm talking about the cases that I'm in, those only cover a small slither of the overall time frame with what's been going on with Carrie and I. And the overall arching theme in all of this, a lot of the things that are going on, they're not even in those cases. And so sometimes I go back and forth and it can be confusing. So I'm going to try to clarify that tonight and kind of give you a little bit of an understanding of kind of the bigger picture before we dive into these things. Okay. So on the one side, there's the public. Okay. This is the public, the court cases, the court filings, things we'll look at tonight. You know, how ARC uses these attorneys to illegally seize properties and churches, and what's in court with ARC and with Celebration for that matter, how that affects you. That really affects you because if they're successful in these precedent-setting cases, if they're not overturned and these precedents stay intact, well, whoever walks in the doors of a church loses a lot of their civil rights. And it's very concerning and disturbing where we're getting to the point where if you are a minister and you commit criminal acts, if you do them in the context of religion or a church, you have some type of immunity, like immunity to the point where the court can't even look into it. And so that's the public side. When we talk about the ARC case, when we talk about the Celebration case, we talk about the lawsuits, you know, when we talk about the attorneys like Sidley Austin LLP that have come in with an amicus brief. That means ARC didn't hire them. They just came in support of ARC's position of, hey, the court shouldn't look into anything that they've done, as well as the Beckett Fund, which has done a lot of really good work in advocating for religious liberties. However, they have, in my opinion, crossed a major line here in advocating for criminal acts to be immune in a church context, okay? And so when we look at these things and we talk about the lawsuits, by the way, welcome to the Stovall Weems Show. Let the insanity begin. Please like and subscribe. And we're going to talk about some other ways to get involved. This is my first night, by the way. If I forget to cover this, I'm recruiting people to help me with research. And I think that when we get into some of these things tonight, you'll see why I need help with research. I'm a one-man show here, and I'm going to be on some other podcasts and some other shows, and they're fairly large. But before I do that, I actually turned down 3 opportunities all the way back in December. And the reason for it is because I want to get enough out there on my own channel and in my own story so that there's some context when people go to look into things, as well as I want to tell the story myself. I don't want to just go on other shows and talk about parts of the story there, because everybody has a certain angle on these things. So as far as the lawsuits are involved, that's what really affects the general public. I mean, this is a constitutional issue, ecclesiastical abstention. We've talked about that a lot on my show. You can look that up. It's really simple. and of course, government shouldn't be able to tell churches how to baptize people and who should be a deacon or not. Of course, that applies. However, what they've done with ecclesiastical abstention is so far stretched it down the line, and it's come into this area of this immunity for criminal behavior. And I'm not going to get into this tonight. It's a very legal discussion, but I have some great articles on ecclesiastical abstention, the overreach, the abuse. People saw this coming a while back. And what they've done is they've twisted. So it's supposed to be in matters of church doctrine or governance. So what attorneys have done, very well, certain attorneys, they have taken the church government and they have made that, church operations. So the governance part of the ecclesiastical abstention doctrine, that's about like who can be a deacon, right? Your bylaw, the state can't tell me how to do who can be elders, who can be deacons, how the church run. It's talking about a spiritual ecclesiastical government. It's not talking about church operations. The government should look into church bank accounts. If there's criminal acts going on in a nonprofit or a church, it is absolutely insane. It is ridiculous to think that, that's not church government. It's operations. There's no doctrines to bank statements. And a church's bylaws, by the way, those are upheld, at least in the state of Florida, they're upheld just like the law. As long as they don't contradict the law, anything in the bylaws contradict the laws of Florida, it's like breaking the law. Well, you're gonna see the law shattered tonight in a few moments. So when we see these cases that we're going over, what we see is this big cover up. We see ARC is willing to pay millions and millions of dollars of tithe money just not to testify, not to do what's 101 in the Bible. And that's another thing that's really disturbing. And hopefully tonight we'll begin to get some insight into where's all this money coming from. So of course they can't show it on their books. So it's covered up somewhere. Congregants aren't going to know about it. But the fact that they're spending millions and millions of dollars that people are giving, thinking they're giving to outreach, you're not giving to outreach, you're giving to criminal cover-ups if you're involved with these guys and those churches, at least in some capacity, right? So that's the public side of this. These cases we filed, you'll see tonight, that's the year 2022 up until we filed 2 lawsuits against Celebration, the defamation and conspiracy, and a few other things. We filed one in May, the end of May of 2022. We filed another one in February of 2023. And then we filed against ARC in federal court, racketeering, conspiracy, and business torts in July of 2023. So what I'm about to tell you is from 2022, let's just say January 1st, 2022, and through July 2023, that's 6 months. Actually, the lawsuits were filed in a 12-month period. That's and 2022, half of 2023. So we're talking about 18 months. Now, when we're talking about what's happened to Carrie and I on the personal side, and where you see me get animated a lot, well, that started like criminally with the surveillance and the hacking. Well, that started in March of 2019. We did not find that out until one of our recent cyber forensic expert reports that was August 2026 of 2025. So we still got 7 years on the statutes of limitations on that one. So that goes back to March 2019. If you look around there, you can see it even goes back a little bit before that. But the surveillance, okay, the obsession, the harassment, the physical harassment, the I'm going to say slashing tire. I don't the flattening of your tires. They're coming in our property and trying to take pictures where Carrie would walk out the door. All of the following, trying to run me over, like all of this insane physical stalking and harassment, as well as the cyber crimes and the surveillance. Those are March 2019, yay unto this day. Okay, where I am right now, you can tell I'm not in my usual green screen studio, but I am in another location, right? And we're visiting some family and friends. Every time we go out of town, oh, they go crazy. They're coming in with another intrusion, hack. They're gonna have to amp it up. And so this is a whole, that's personal, right? That's like 2019 until now. And what you've heard me say is they won't stop. Now, here's what you need to understand. These things overlap. Like they through their MDM or RMM, it's the remote management component that they were using. I mean, they took all of our evidence. They extracted it through remote access Trojans, and some of the evidence that we had, they corrupted. They also deposited things on our computers that I'll show you. Some are very disturbing. And the other disturbing component is the targeting of Carrie. So like on the hack yesterday, that's Carrie. They're coming into Carrie. They're obsessed with Carrie. They, you've all heard about the Zoom sessions. It's like the things they've deposited on her computer. That's not, how is that related to the case? I can understand them stealing evidence and things like that. I can even understand them harassing me. But this is a much larger thing, and I haven't told you guys a tenth of it. And so what we're trying to do is there's these two components. Every time there's a legal thing, like, okay, we're going to go, we just filed a new lawsuit, or we're about to file, or, something's coming up in the legal. Well, the cyber intrusion, it goes off the charts. I mean, there's a timeline that I have in raw form where you can see every time there's a legal event, oh my gosh, the surveillance and the cyber crime goes, it goes off the chain. And then the other thing is the physical harassment and surveillance that is completely lined up with the cyber stalking and surveillance. So that's the difficulty in explaining this. When we talk about the crimes, what's really going on at ARC, what in the world did Carrie and I bump into that's underneath? We're going to talk about, remember that question, why won't they stop? And I think there's going to be some more detail to what you're saying there. Is it all to intimidate? And I would say some, but in the larger picture, and what I'm hoping that you guys can help Carrie and I with is, what I'm hoping you guys can help Carrie and I with is what's going on in the bigger picture? Why is this happening? So when we talk about cases and stuff, like I'm going to show you some emails and some things tonight, some text. Those emails, that's like 2022, half of 2023. That's where, and of course, 2021 leading up to that. But like the larger picture of whatever we have bumped into that is under the hood is, that's what they're afraid of. And that's what you're going to see tonight. They're not afraid of contracts and even ARC going to court Well, no, they would be afraid of that one because the racketeering and conspiracy, if the judge does not uphold ecclesiastical abstention, we'll get all in the cybercrime. So that one they're very concerned about. But you know, I'll tell you a story where this became evident, and then we'll get on with tonight's stuff. A lot of good things to show you guys. I think you're going to be like, whoa, you're going to be shocked. And if you're a pastor, you're going to get an inside look at how ARC uses their attorneys. It's like their military, and it's how they use their attorneys to illegally seize churches and nonprofits, intimidate, silence, you know, all this kind of stuff. It's very much a pattern of military psyops. And I believe because they've never been held accountable, if they can be held accountable, I believe that that's why they just continue to do it over and over and over again. So I'll never forget when Carrie and I discovered the seriousness of our cyber stalking and how they were in all of our devices with remote access, and a big way that this cyber forensics report showed they're just coming in right through our Wi-Fi, our something with our Comcast Wi-Fi. And what it showed is that our Wi-Fi, like if you look at, okay, who's, you know, what's the DNS? What's our Wi-Fi server? It was Comcast and the Onion Network. That's the dark web. So our providers, our internet providers were the dark web and Comcast. And so we ripped all that out of the wall. We got all of our computers, the evidence that we had in the time. And I think I told you all this, maybe, you know, we got put on the car. All of a sudden, here comes the physical stalking. Someone pulls up, tries to block us from leaving the driveway. I go after him, peels out. It's always, I can never get to him. I'm not the fastest person, but I make every effort I can. But it's all to intimidate, you know, all that stuff. And so they blocked our driveway. We go down to Orlando. We're trying to seal the evidence, like we're going to deliver it to an attorney or a cyber forensics firm or something like that, you know, because now we're concerned that they're going to try to get in and steal everything because of what we know now. And oh my gosh, we went down to Orlando, and it was just crazy surveillance stalking. That's where they at least acted like they were going to run me over. I believe there was a night in the hotel room. It's another story I can tell at another time. I think there was a setup for me to walk in a door. I'm making sure everyone can hear me. I'm getting a comment. Is my mic off? I have not turned my mic off. I'm assuming y'all can hear me good. So this occurred, by the way, let me tell you when this is. This was in March of 2024. Okay, that's when, boom, man, it was revealed the magnitude of what they were doing. And it was also when we were finding strange things on Carrie's computer, you know, like quotes from The Shining and stuff I'm not going to get into tonight because there'll be a time to get into that. But they were really just horrible. These people are horrible. And so that's when that was. And we went down there, and it was absolutely insane. I believe, I don't know, but I believe there was a setup for me to walk in to the hotel room next to Carrie and mine. I don't know what they're going to do, which is the other thing I want to tell you guys. If you're ever in a situation where there's this type of stuff involved, they would love to get you to react and then shoot you and say, oh yeah, well, he was coming in our hotel room, or he was whatever, like that. I mean, this door was cracked open. it was another time. The hotel clerk warned me about the room. That she didn't there's some new guests in there. That's another story. So, so I do want to say that. And so a lot of it was trying to train myself in protecting my wife, but not put myself in a situation where they're setting me up to react where they can shoot me or whatever. And I don't think that's out of the realm of the possible. I don't think people do stuff like this. I don't think that they'll shoot me now. I mean, I don't think that they'll assassinate me. In fact, one of our attorneys, when he was looking at everything that was going on, his comment to me was, he said, he said, after reviewing all your stuff and evidence, he said, remember, I'm not talking about just the case. I'm talking about the bigger picture with all this personal stuff. He said, all I can tell you is this is what they do to people when they're not going to shoot you. And what he meant by that was, this is how they kill people without killing them. They're going to murder you another way, and they're going to try to destroy you this way. And then I'm just giving you an example of the physical threats and things like that. That's what I'm talking about right now. And when we got back from Orlando, I was talking to my attorney at the time, and I remember telling him, we have all the police reports, we've got all this stuff. And I remember telling him, I said, look, I'm not going to war with the mob over a parsonage. So I'm not, we've bumped into something that is so much, something that could get revealed in these cases that has some really powerful people. And what I have told you is nothing associated with the evidence we have and with the things that have happened, which will show you there are some very powerful people involved. And this is what kind of started. The only thing that there's a large dark network operating in and under nonprofits. That's what I believe. And I do believe that much of it is indirectly, maybe was directly, but now indirectly tied to Epstein. Okay. And the reason, I'll show you some things tonight as we get started on that. But I want y'all to think about this. Okay. I want you to think about there's Hollywood, right? There's our government, and the political world. So there's the celebrity world, the political world, and then there's the church nonprofit world. Let me ask you a question, okay? Where is all of the sick, dark, pedophile, predatory, underage interns stuff? Where is all of that showing up? It's showing up in the political world. Think of Diddy. Think of it, the Epstein higher-ups. Okay, so it's showing up in the celebrity world, right? Think of Diddy. And I'm telling you, it's showing up in the church world. And both of those, I guess, the political environment and the celebrity environment have always used churches as main, they've used them for cover, and they're absolutely essential. And so if it's showing up in all these three main places, right? The political arena, think of the Epstein files, P. Diddy case with all the celebrities, and now all the church stuff coming out, which is like, I haven't even caught up with all of the stuff. And I know things eventually they're public. You could find them. I'll know things or I'll show you things eventually. It's worse than anything that I've seen come out publicly. And it's public information, but somehow, you know, search engines, it should be a lot easily accessible. But, you know, you've seen the stuff about Kanakuk, all the stuff coming about Bethel and all this kind of stuff. So those are the three worlds. So my contention is that if everyone's running the same playbook, you trace that down the line, you're going to find the same coach. And the how they use the church is, I guess I would say, is through the favorable laws and the expansion of those laws, like ecclesiastical abstention, because the church is the only institution in America where it's like, oh, you can't even, like I'm saying, the government could for various reasons, but like churches aren't required to turn in any accountability. They're not required to show how their money came in, who it came in from. They're not required to show where it went. I believe most, and then with the attorneys and how nonprofits and churches, they're very large, and it's millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. You know, when they stole Celebration, it was over $100 million. That's valuable. And these attorneys are able to get in and create so many nonprofit shells. They're able to, especially with real estate, especially with all that kind of stuff. And they're just able to get in there and hide. And then you add the donor investment, like how people give to Beckett Fund, where it's anonymous. It's coming from, you know, a Fidelity or a JP Morgan or something like that. It's just billions of dollars that are untraceable. Well, that's what criminal organizations love. And that's what people love, where they can hide money, not tax money, buy things they shouldn't buy, send money places they shouldn't send, get around political laws or other corporate laws if they technically do it through a church. And the church just has no law. So the church can give it back and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, so that's kind of the big picture in a nutshell, where we're gonna head tonight. And, you know, many of you know, in my case, I showed it a couple of weeks ago. I demanded an audit, all that kind of stuff. You know, of course, they never did it. And what I believe now, especially after looking at, I don't even think an audit would matter, because after looking at my former CFO, after looking at Lisa Stewart's 2020 audit, the Celebration audit then, oh my gosh, that audit company, by the way, they ought to be embarrassed. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. They don't exist anymore. But we found out they were taking verbals from her. I mean, I had another, what do you call them? They're an accountant, they're an auditor. Look at that 2020 audit and some other financial info I had. I mean, it's just clear as day where she double counted assets as expenses and all that. I mean, you can see $5.5 million, I think, right off the bat. Could have been more. And then we found, oh, what's a verbal? I have a coach. I have a small audience in here tonight to help me. When you have an audit, you guys know, like, your CFO can't just say, oh, well, that was for this. Oh, well, yeah, I don't have any documentation on this asset we purchased, but it was this, and, you know, whatever. No, it has to be documented. There has to be a trace. So this firm, and we'll get to it one day, I'll put we will look at it online, and it's just unbelievable. They took verbals and just, I guess, did whatever Lisa said. Of course, they're great friends with ARC. So that's what I'm saying. It's like Enron. If you're familiar with everyone's benefiting. If ARC or mega church connected, if they need the audit to look this way, at least in my experience after looking into all these things, well, they're just going to make it say that. So even now, I just wouldn't trust. I've seen too much. I think audits can be manufactured, and if they're benefiting and they're friends of ARC, just like the attorneys and all these other things. Okay. How is everybody doing? Here's what I want to do. I'm going to go straight to, if this is what I would refer to as illegal seizure, or some people called it the coup. It was a coup in good old fashioned Marxism style, but I believe very differently after what's happened to us and all the evidence that I've seen and that we have, is that something much more nefarious was going on for a while. And the seizure of the institution was it was necessary because I'd uncovered some things and exposed some things. I think that they wanted to, or I think, let me say it this way. If I wouldn't have had my encounter with the Lord, number one, and then renounced the church growth movement, none of this would have ever happened. I think they knew I wouldn't play ball. I wouldn't play ball before, whatever they're playing ball with. But it got to the point where I knew too much. I saw too much. I was exposing them. I was, a lot of those things we looked at last time. And so it just got to the point where when I'm about to dismiss Kevin Cormier, the guy that they had on the ground, helping with the embezzlement, helping with the slander campaign and all that kind. When I'm about to dismiss him, they had to act earlier. And that's what you're going to see in these emails. And then we're going to go, we're going to pick it up with Sidley and Beckett fund where we left off last week. Then we're going to go into the seizure. And then I've got a video for you. And I'm going to try to roll right through this, and then we'll have some questions, okay? Because I could talk about a lot of these things for a long time. All right, so let's go back to last week when we talked about, in addition to ARC's 20 attorneys, these two massive, less than 2% of amicus briefs. And amicus, once again, it's like an interested party. So they're not hired by ARC. Technically, they come in to say, hey, we're interested in this case for our own reasons. And okay, if one amicus filing comes in, I mean, that's something. So we had the very rare less than 2% of amicus, both Sidley Austin LLP. We'll look at them again. They, they represent the who's who of the world. You're going to find out. Last week we looked at all the Chinese surveillance companies that were their clients and all the hot water with the DOD. Now we're going to look at another one of their clients that I think is very interesting. And the Sidley Austin group of scholars is who filed that amicus. Okay, so it's a group of Yale scholars. And they came in and filed an amicus brief. And then right on the back end of that was the Beckett Fund that has advocated some really good religious freedom cases. And I'm I believe that Beckett Fund still does good work, but I think maybe after what you see tonight, I think you'll be concerned too. And all I know is this. All I know is people are corruptible. And when there's millions and billions of dollars, people are, they'll quickly turn away from their ethics, unfortunately. So let's look at these things. I want to take you back to this. There's three. Think of three defense teams all against me. Coming in full power. Oh yeah, they're just interested in this church case. Okay, so let me add this. You guys see that there, right? So I want you, here's the Sidley Austin LLP, these attorneys, and then this guy here, this guy here, Nicholas Reeves. You'll see the Yale Law School free exercise clinic. Okay, we'll take a look at that in a second. So this was the brief. This is not Beckett Fund's brief. They basically say the same things. It's a straw man argument, meaning they don't address our claims. They just, in my opinion, make stuff up. But they have a reason. They're very interested in this case. It's got to stay covered up. Courts can't look into anything. Bring in the big dogs. Bring in the bring them all in. Bring them on. Come on. Okay, so I'm not going to go over that, right? We went over a lot of this last week. Okay, so now I want you to look at, okay, I'm going to explain something about this document here. What we're about to look at is, we're just about to look at not the research we looked at last week with how Sidley's clients are all tied into, I need to be careful, or maybe they're former clients. I don't know. Maybe they're current clients. You can look at the video, but you know, they've been banned by the DOD. They're like enemies of the state. They're part of the Chinese military industrial complex, which is an actual DOD term, by the way. So Sidley got in trouble because they didn't disclose to the government that they were their clients. And so that's what you see in the articles and the one I showed you last week. So let me tell you what I researched this week. So what I researched was Epstein's, and here's why. Let me tell you why I'm jumping to Epstein. Whoa, hold on. What's going on here? Because back to the personal side, not the lawsuit side, the only similarities that I can find close to what Carrie and I have been through, that, remember, you guys have not heard 10% that we have been through and still going through. The only thing that we can find where there's some type of, well, it's like that, and that is whistleblowers that are uncovering like a major, massive corruption scheme. And what we can't make sense of it anywhere else. And when I do show you these things, and I have to be careful because I don't, there's some things that we need to do so they won't be able to cover their tracks, whatever they can cover. But the power structures that are involved, that we have clear evidence of, I don't know, collusion, coercion, it's so unnecessary in like just a lawsuit case. It's like, it's very disturbing. And so I was like, okay, well, let's see what these ties are to Epstein. I'll tell you about the three sectors: political, celebrity, and the church. And the church is the only other place besides the political world and the celebrity world where predators are promoted. So if predators are being promoted in the church world, in the celebrity world, And in the political world, what are these guys just all totally separate and all on their own? I would contend no. So that's where I'm going to recruit some of you to help me with some of this research, because the more I dig, the more disturbing it is. So let's look at Sidley and let's look at these Yale law professors and let's see if there was any ties to Epstein. Okay. You guys can probably guess. I don't know if you guys can see. Hopefully you can see this. Let me tell you where this research is. Full disclosure, this is just Grok. That's all this is. This is Grok doing deep research and looking for these connections. I understand AIs can be wrong sometime, but the sources are the sources, and they're all in the sources, which I have checked out. So, and some of you aren't going to be surprised by this. Some of this stuff, or all of this stuff, is public. Okay. So, let's look at this. Research indicates Jeffrey Epstein had documented, I'm not going to read through the whole thing. Let me just tell you what it says. Had documented connections to Yale University through email correspondences with professors seeking funding or collaborations. You probably heard of that, about that, is ties into Yale and all that kind of stuff. And I'll be the first to admit, yeah, these Yale scholars, it's just a big coincidence, but there's some serious ties, including the Yale free clinic that showed up on my thing. Now look at this. Sidley Austin LLP served as legal counsel for an Epstein-chaired offshore company, Liquid Funding Ltd. They didn't represent him personally, okay? However, wait till you see how intricately involved Sidley Austin has been with Jeffrey Epstein, including being the legal counsel for his $6.2 billion offshore fund. I wonder what that was used for. Also, I'm just going to, okay. So here's Sidley Austin, right? It says that some of these things are just other. I want to get to the, okay, let me just get to this. Okay, here we go. These are just, see this Jed right here, y'all? See this Jed Rubenfeld? That was the Yale law professor who ended up getting fired, I think, in 2022. Well, as you're going to see here, and like I'm saying, I really want to develop it because there was so much I just didn't have time to get into. What you're going to see here, this guy was majorly connected to that same Yale free clinic that showed up on the amicus in defense of ARC. And if you look at Nicholas, this is Nicholas, okay? So he was, he's on our lawsuit, okay? Gosh, man, these are so hard for me, y'all. I can't read them. Let me get to here. Okay, his connections to Yale. Okay, so I'm sorry. I've got to get away where I can see this better. So anyway, just look at this is the guy that showed up on our front, Nicholas Christakis, I believe. Let me just okay. I'm gonna pull him. He was on the document. No, Nicholas Reeves. Nicholas Reeves. I'm sorry. Okay, so you can go back and read this, but look, the Epstein connections here to Yale, and we're going to look at some further. Oh, it's in the next document. That's why I'm confused. I'm looking for something. Okay, Look at it with Sidley Austin LLP. Epstein chaired this $6.7 billion Bermuda Incorporated company. We know he loves islands. With Bear Stearns, later JP Morgan, his manager. Sidley Austin provided legal counsel handling offshore structures. This overlaps Epstein's alleged crimes, but no evidence Sidley knew or facilitated any of the criminal activity. Okay. So look at this. Indirect ties. Sidley represented, y'all remember this guy? Alexander Acosta in a 2020 DOJ probe over Epstein's 2008 plea deal. Remember Acosta, the guy that covered everything up? Of course, right here in Florida, that did the illegal thing where the victims didn't even know that they reached a plea deal, right? Sidley represented him. So, and you can read the rest of it there. And so basically, it says Epstein's elite ties fuel blackmail theories, but DOJ memos find no evidence. We know he blackmailed him. But it talks about Yale's fallout, and then you can see the things right there. So what I'm trying to show you all is this. That's a pretty big Epstein connection. Of course it could be coincidence, but for Sidley, this is what I'm saying. Think Sidley Austin Yale Beckett Fund, Sidley Austin Yale Beckett Fund, and did I even put Wexner's foundations? That we're gonna have to wait till next week. What did I put in here? Okay, so let's go into the Yale Law School here. I don't even have Wexner's wait until next week. This was not a purpose setup. I was going to show you. Y'all know Lex Wexner, that was Epstein's guy. Wait till you see what his foundations are giving to and supporting. But let's go with the Yale Law School, Yale School Free Exercise Clinic. Nicholas Reeves, that's the guy on my case. Okay, his name's on the filing. Jed Rubenfield, that's the guy that Yale ended up firing, the Yale law professor. Epstein connections. Key points. Nicholas Reeves is a Yale School visiting clinical lecturer and co-founder of the Free Exercise Clinic with ties stemming from his role in teaching and supervising students on religious liberty cases. First of all, I want to say this. I don't know Nicholas Reeves. Nicholas Reeves is possibly a really good guy. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. A lot of these guys do things and, hey, we're going to take this case. Who knows what the motivations are? I believe he does know it is a motivation other than, hey, y'all, look at this case over here. Let's go down and try to get immunity for these pastors accused of racketeering and extortion and things like that. I do think there's another motive in this. So if you look at this, it says evidence leans towards the Yale Law School Free Exercise Clinic being a student-led initiative under faculty's supervision. Talks about where it's located. It seems likely Jed Rubenfield, that's the Yale law professor, close associate with Epstein, a Yale law professor specializing in, guess what? Constitutional law, like religious freedom, like the First Amendment, has indirect ties to the clinic through shared academic interest in First Amendment issues, including commentaries on free exercise doctrine. Boy, I tell you what, Epstein had some buddies that were, boy, they wanted to make sure that churches could just do what they wanted. But look, but no direct supervisory or collaborative role is documented. And that's what we're going to look into next week, because there are things out there I just hadn't had time to research, but there's a lot more to this. So here's Nicholas Reeves. All right. it just gives a little bit of background about him. And he's a big religious liberty guy. Okay. But if you go into here, here's the ties to Jed Rubenfield. That's the guy that was in with Epstein. He focuses on constitutional law, First Amendment issues, including free exercise. He's promoted commentaries on it sounds like he did some great work. He just got involved with the wrong guy. And then it talks about here, it says, he doesn't supervise the free clinic or has done joint projects, but what it's going to tell you is that his work is like the same work that the free clinic was involved in. And so what we're going to find is there's all kinds of collaboration. I believe it's like their work totally intersects, but there's no, he didn't never supervise it. He was never an official Yale free exercise person. And it says, the exploration of Nicholas Reed's ties to Yale Law School, the Yale Law School Free Exercise Clinic, and the potential connections to Professor Joel Rubenfield uncovers a network, listen, y'all, uncovers a network centered on religious liberty advocacy within legal education. Reeves emerged as a key figure bringing practice and teaching, while the clinic represents Yale's commitment to experiential learning in the First Amendment law. Rubenfield's involvement appears more thematic than direct, reflecting broader academic intersections at Yale. This detailed survey synthesizes findings from institutional records, legal databases, news archives, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And so now it gives you a little bit of background on that. Here's all I want to say about this. Okay. What you're not seeing with more context is what you're not seeing is the whole Lex Wessner Foundation that I was actually planning on showing with this, but I'm not going to. That's going to be for next week. And how the Lex Wexner Foundation, what it got involved in, what it flowed money to, how that, then we're going to look at the Beckett Fund and their representation in many of those. I'm not saying the organizations are bad. I know some of them aren't bad. In Lex Wexner causes, we're going to see the connection between the evangelical church and Lex Wexner foundations. It's all there. We're going to see things with the NAE, who I found out files. I'm getting off here. That's Ted Haggard. Think of Ted Haggard. He's the president of the NAE. And there's evidence there that he was sending those kids, or sending some of his, Lex Wexner, that Haggard was sending his interns, the gay interns, to certain people in the NAE and in that political DC area. Who's Les Wexner? Les Wexner is the billionaire. He owns Victoria's Secrets. Just Google Lex Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein. So Epstein managed his money. It's one of the big things in the whole Epstein case and the Epstein files. Why did Wexner let Epstein manage his billions and all that? And so what you see is Epstein and Wexner, I would say, working together. What it looked like is that Wexner worked for Epstein and basically did whatever Epstein told him to do. And so a lot of these things, Epstein, this is real important because this brings up another thing with this. So what Epstein would do is, like Yale, okay? I have nothing against Yale, by the way, but I'm just telling you right now, if you're going to show up, this is the correlation. Watch. You showed up along with Beckett Fund, in my case, against a group of people for racketeering and criminal behavior and business torts. Okay. In this case, we do talk about the invasion of privacy and a very general thing of hacking and computer crimes. I believe it's in there in general. And so while all this is surveillance is going on and right now and has been for these past 7 years, all this stuff is happening to me, and all I can see out there is the church world and the political world and the celebrity world. They love promoting predators. That's what they do. I think there's an absolute connection. I think they already, if you're asking, I think that the church is it's the most necessary vehicle of what they do. And I believe some people got reckless with what was going on with us and for whatever reason. And so if they're going to show up and back over to the public, the legal side, I just told you about the personal, the cybercrime, going back over to the legal. If they're going to show up there, well, then I'm gonna look into who these connections are, because I do not think they should be anywhere near my case unless it gives the potential of uncovering what's underneath with the surveillance, cybercrime, and whatever else that they're running in these nonprofits. So that's why I'm going to go there. And I've said all along, I do not believe it's just art. I do not believe it's just celebration. I believe it is multiple nonprofits and churches. I believe it's vast, and you can see some of the things out there now with TPUSA, and you see all the things with these predators. Why? We're going to look at a guy in a minute, and you know what? Another situation with ARC, and I can't figure out why churches would take the risk. There are places ARC has gotten involved where it's the opposite of me. There's a guy there had done terrible things, right? Terrible things. And man, they are going in there moving hell and high water to try to rescue the guy, take the church, and circulate him back into ministry as soon as possible. And I just don't understand why they would do that unless there is this larger network at play. Told you about with Haggard. You can see it in the political and celebrity world. There's a larger thing at play where predators are valuable. They're valuable leaders in these organizations because they have this camaraderie of evil and exploitation. It's like you're in the club and they know that they got dirt on each other. And so that person can be a very trusted ally in the whole thing. So anyway, okay, we're going to get to this more next week, because I want you to see the Epstein foundations, the Les Wexner, and follow the money a little bit there. Okay. So, okay. Are you guys ready? We're going to have to shift real quick. Where did my thing go? How do I get back on? Is this it? No. I'm coming on like that for a second. All right. Everybody take a deep breath. Okay. Is everybody good? We've talked about the personal, 7 years, the public, the legal cases, how that affects you, how they overlap, the cyber stalking, the physical harassment and surveillance, and the legal work. But there's a personal and there's a public. Okay. What's in the lawsuits, this is so important. What's in the lawsuits, it's a fraction of the crime. I mean, it's just a fraction. In some ways, it's so and I personally, I think that's why I don't know if they wanted to settle, could they settle? Because they're not settling for a parsonage and contracts and business torts. They're gonna have to come in and make sure that we don't do RICO for all the cyber crimes, or I don't think they can control the criminal filings that we're working on. Although I'll leave that for another episode and let you decide how authorities have responded so far. I'll let you decide that. I'll just show you stuff. Okay. Man, y'all got some good comments in here. I wanna get to these. Don't forget them. I don't know. We got a couple of moderators there. So don't forget these. We're going to come back to them. Okay, can I walk you through real quick how ARC uses their attorneys? Okay, at least in this way. I mean, to come in and take over where they have no right, they have no authority, they have no. And remember, I'm not going to go through our bylaws. Remember, I was a senior pastor. I had plenary authority. I was the founder, the chairman of the board, the president, the CEO, all that, and had plenary authority. My bylaws were created by the very attorneys that turned around and destroyed them illegally. And so ARC knows what they're doing. So the bylaws on this end, let's call it a cyber term, if you know computers, which I know too much about now. You're user facing. You're the user facing. They look, oh yeah, these are good. And so all this balance. And if anything, if there are accusations about a pastor or someone in leadership, there's a really healthy biblical way to protect the church and then try to reconcile, not necessarily come back in ministry at that place, but you know how the family's affected and the wife and depending on what that is. Okay. You're going to see an example right after this of what ARC does in those situations. So we're going to get into these emails and, oh yes, oh, that one. Okay. First of all, these are mostly in chronological order. I know I'm sure I've left some out and, maybe one's in there twice. I don't know. I'm a one-man operation. And I hope, by the way, I'm going to start a GoFundMe page and Patreon and all that, because I'll tell you this, I'm not going to be able to make it through these cases. They've almost bankrupted us now. And so that's another thing. Maybe some of you could help research like civil liberties or constitutional, like someone that could come in and help. And we've spent everything after they stole everything. So we spent borrowed money, the most of it, and we spent some of the personal loans that we gave to Honey Lake. We got paid back for some of those. We spent all that. I'm telling you, I would have done things totally different if I'd have known what we're really up against, which I feel like I'm just kind of finally discovering, but I just want to get my wife out of harm's way. And right now, these guys aren't stopping. Okay, let me go to this. Okay. Let me give you some context here. So you guys remember when we went through, I believe it was a few weeks ago, and we were going through the timeline about the setup with the laying on a hand service. I'm not going anywhere. I'm being the global senior pastor, founding pastor. I'm focusing on missions, all that kind of stuff. The attorney who later comes in to help destroy me had been working on this for over 2 years. Lots of correspondence. All of a sudden he disappears. All kind of weird things start happening. I'm about to confront Kevin Cormier, who embezzled. I don't really know how much he embezzled, but I'll tell you this. I'm just going to put his fraudulent billing and what it looks like he's embezzled. I'm just going to put it all up here. Let y'all go through it. You can add it up. So, which I'm not even sure how much Lisa and Kevin, they coordinated together. I don't know who got what percent of the money stolen, but I do believe this. I believe that they absolutely are using the money they stole to try from the church that I pastor to try to destroy me. I believe that's part of how they're paying for all this stuff, in which that's classic RICO. They come in, they seize, they steal whatever, and then they use the profits from the very company they stole to try to destroy you through attorneys or other means. Okay. So look at this. This is, that's when I pulled a copy of it. Where is it? See, January 9th, 2022. Okay. So I'm supposed to meet with Kevin. They send these other emails that I don't want to look at now, where it shows a lot, but I want to pull that back up when we look at what they put in the media with Wedekind's, with the attorneys, with that report, the false and fabricated report that we sued over, that they put in the media. It's easy. Anyway, so I'm going to remove him. All of a sudden, I get an email back from him saying, no, he's removing me. And I'm under investigation. Oh, okay. So I'm just like, look, if you want to investigate me, you'll see it. Wait, that's not the one I wanted to pull up. I need my moderators. Let me get what I want to pull up. That's not it. The first thing I want to pull up is this text between Carrie and another board member, because it's a good, even though it's January 21st, it's a good tie over or a bridge to these emails. So anyway, Kevin says that I'm going to church Sunday. I'm like, if you want to investigate me, fine, but you got to do it the right way. You got to bring in the overseers, confirm my new ones, bring John Adino back. I don't care. I've never been imposed to any investigation because I know I haven't done anything wrong. And I know I got a bag full of your fraud and fraudulent bills and all kind of criminal usury and all kinds of stuff you've done. So yeah, let's do the investigation. Okay. Let me show you this. Let me show you the cognitive dissonance. This is a board member. This is someone who was involved, okay, in all this. Her name is Angela Cannon. This is a text thread between her and Carrie. Oh, there's so many of these to show. Okay, so look, this is November 17th, so this is about 2 months before it all went down, right? So I'm just showing you, had a wonderful time yesterday, how sweet she was being to Carrie, and honoring and all that kind of stuff. And look at this. She said, I need to tell you, I would be honored to be on your board and all this kind of stuff. Angela was new. We put her on the board in June. Okay. And now I think this is talking about Carrie with these restorative community developments, a missions thing or something like that. And I mean, if you go back through and read these, she is just being so, Carrie's in, she's just being so gushy, honor, love you. Okay. And now we get to December 1st and You know, Carrie's getting back to her. I'm just kind of, I'm just giving you this to show you the context of how friendly and, oh, Carrie, you know, I'm your friend. I love you. All this kind of stuff. Just, you can read some of it for yourself. Okay. So now we're getting up. Hi, Angela. There's Carrie. Hi, Angela. Just checking in, see how you're doing. You know, whatever you girls text each other. Hey, beautiful. Here comes Angela. Okay. Glad you are well, you know, all this kind of stuff. Oh yeah, look, thanks so much for praying for Stovall last night for the board meeting. I want to go and support him, but it's so triggering and infuriating to be in that room and listening to the people who have pulled no weight. Oh, look at this. I hadn't read this in a while. Pulled no weight, make decisions about my income. It's like a monopoly. Here's what she's saying about her income. There's no package. Despite us saying, hey, isn't Carrie going to get, when we transition to this new role that's not leaving the church, she's already gotten no salary. She's not going to be paid as organizational development, the thing she was doing before. And Goodspeed, the attorney that comes in to help Art seize everything, she's got correspondence with him going on for a year and a half. So what's happening is there's all these stalemates. And so she's nervous about where's all the legal things to protect us. Okay. Let me just get you through this. And so here's all this. Oh, I love you. Here's Carrie. Hi, Angela. I hope you had a good Christmas. All this kind of stuff. Man, we put her on the clinic board. And now look, I want you to notice the date. The last date was, well, sometime in December, right? Now look at this. This is January 21st. I'm about to show you these emails. Y'all hang in there. I'm going to get through them quick. I've got to show you all this, though. Carrie, I love you. I'm so sorry that you are hurting. I know that it doesn't feel like that. What if just for today we forget that we ever had any person that we hold a grudge or hurt for, even if minor? And we trust that if we need to think about it again, are y'all listening to this? Carrie, do not acknowledge what's going on to you. Carrie, let's forget about all of the harm and pain because you'll see. Our attorneys, the Hollands and Knight one that we had, the real ones, they were calling out Angela for numerous things. Here she is trying to do some MK Ultra, telling Carrie just don't acknowledge and forget about these things. So here's what Carrie says. I'm assuming you realize that we were totally cut off with no paycheck or income, no severance, no retirement. Our name dragged through the mud on baseless charges. We still don't know what Stovall is accused of. No one will talk to us. No one has asked us one question, including you. Threatened with arrest if we step foot on our property. I'm about to show you all those emails. Our emails, personal information, intellectual property are held captive in the cloud. We had to lay off 30 people. She's talking about from Honey Lake Farms. Angela, please don't deceive yourself into thinking your actions look anything remotely like love. They don't. They look like you are drunk with a thirst for power. Go PK. Okay. From a legal standpoint, they look like a breach of fiduciary duty on a profound scale. We made financial decisions based on our faith in the severance and retirement promised by our board. Remember, we weren't retiring, but we didn't have a retirement package. So we didn't want to come into this new bishop type overseeing role without some of these things lined up. And by the way, we saved the church over 15 years. I think came to $96 million over 15 years, cash savings. What we were willing to assume with the farm and these other things because I had all the partnerships set up. So anyway, And the missions money that was committed, we're living off the charity of family and selling our cars and belongings to survive. We had an opportunity to show, when you had an opportunity to show love, when you could have voted to confirm our overseers. So another thing we'll look at, to give Stovall due process and stop the total chaos that is destroying the church and us right now. You could show love now by insisting that the board move immediately into Christian mediation. As our bylaws state, you forfeited every right and privilege to speak into our lives when you recklessly abandon your duty to preserve order. She's coming from a document that our lawyers that help the church with corporate things, once our, if you could say, our church internal lawyers, Goodspeed and Middlebrook, completely sabotaged, and we found out they were working for Art, not us. Holland and Knight sent Angela and another board member a letter saying that that they were liable, and it gets into legal things. I'm not going to tell you why, because Kevin was a dismissed trustee, and somehow Kevin, the ARC attorney, appointed him head over all the church, the embezzler. And so from Holland and Knight's perspective, they're like, he doesn't even have a right to whatever. It's these two people, Angela and Jacob, that could do something about it. And they refused to vote. You're going to see this in a second. And, well, we know now because Jacob Williams, another board member, Jacob Williams, showed up in the cyber forensics report as, Carrie's Zoom sessions were illegally and secretly tunneled. And the two main people besides the person on the ground, Gabby, were Kevin and Jacob. So, but that's all ecclesiastical. It's the doctrine of cyber stalking by celebration. Okay, look. This isn't about forgiveness or grudge. Think about trust. You're not trustworthy. This is I still can't believe Angela texted her to forget about everything for a day and love. Okay. You're not look at Carrie. She's so good. This is about trust. You're not trustworthy. You are not a safe person. I will not allow you to gaslight me with text about love while you participate in destroying me. If someone committed and was arrested for murder, they would at least be told specifically why they were being arrested and brought in for questioning. First thing, Stovall and me by extension are being treated worse than actual criminals. Let that sink in. Don't you have any curiosity as to whether or not the circus you're participating in is just and fair? I'm astounded by your disregard for truth and justice. If someone committed and was arrested for murder, they would be specifically told why they were being arrested or brought in for questioning. First thing, Stovall and me by extension are being treated worse. Let that sink in. Don't you? Okay, I'm sorry. This is a repeat. Here's what she says. What Carrie's saying is this. You're going to see this in the minute. We're begging to someone question us. Please investigate us. We never were like, stop the investigation. You're going to see that in here. We just wanted it done the right way. But when we saw they were actively out there destroying us, and they wouldn't question us, they wouldn't sit us down, tell us what I did, or me down. Carrie shouldn't even be in it at all. Sit me down, tell me what I did wrong. Well, then we knew that something else was up. So that's what Carrie's referring to here. So, here it comes. Carrie, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Look, all right, y'all, here we go. This is the first big thing I'm willing to give up publicly. That, a lot of these things aren't in these cases. Look at this. Carrie, I'm sorry that you're going through this. I couldn't have ethically stopped the investigation. Now wait till you hear Carrie's response. We didn't ask her to stop it. It was a storm that was brewing long before Jacob and I joined the board. Long before. They joined the board I think the clinic board in January 2021, the church board in June 2021. They were involved at the church since, I think, 2019. Look what she says. This was a storm brewing long before Jacob and I joined the board. You know what this tells me? This tells me, and she's telling Carrie, oh, we're such good friends. Read this for what it says. Read it for what it says. She was involved in this storm brewing, like long before she even joined the board. Like, which what I think Art does, and I need to get through these things. There's so much, y'all. It's just a lot. I know it's a lot of information, but anyway, there was a shadow. There was some type after we go through all the documents, it's going to take a long time. I think anyone that follows this story is going to see a couple of things. Is that there was an illegal shadow government that was set up for a long time. I think Carrie heard me quoting her or something. That was set up for a long time. They were planning this for a long time. Everyone got a piece of the pie. Everyone benefited. But then you're going to see under that is something even more nefarious. And that's really disturbing. So look, I couldn't have ethically stopped this investigation. It was a storm that was brewing long before. When? Since 2019? Since March 19th, 2019? When the cyber stalking surveillance started? Did you get some of the embezzlement, Angela? What was your cut? Did you get some of the money and Jacob got to get in on the voyeurism, the sadistic voyeurism club? Or maybe that's your deal, Angela. Maybe you're into that kinky stuff too. Maybe you were in on the voyeuristic stuff. It says, look what she says. We have and will continue to advocate for you. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean that you should assume we are not. The mean things that you wrote about me are unwarranted and cruel. All of us came around you, Stovall, and your teams to do whatever we could do to help, to bring this plan to life. We gave our time, money, and connections. Angela Cannon never gave a single dollar to anything. She said she did. We looked it up. Nothing. She got money. She got power. And now she's trying to gaslight Carrie into she's just a good person and just forget about all your hurt and pain. Look what she says. There were many, many days. What? We chose to rally. Anyway, I can't even read it. Look, we chose to rally right. So your root attack is out of line. I'm not sure what gaslighting is. I won't text again, but I do wish you the best. Wow, Angela doesn't even know what gaslighting is. Let me show it to you. It's this. Okay. What if just for today, we forget that we ever had any person that we hold a grudge or hurt for, even if matter, and we trust that if we need to think about it again, we will not until at least tomorrow or the day after. This is what the Lord is ministering to me right now. Please share it with Stovall too. Carrie, just forget, ignore, move on. Just for today, but you know what? One day at a time, tomorrow you can do the same thing. This is gaslighting. Then Carrie, she's so awesome. Now let's go to this. I don't know. We might have to get to the emails next week, but they're really, maybe I can go through them quick because you got to read Carrie's response. Look at this. Angela, this is the first indication that you ever have given to me that you or Jacob are advocating for us or intended to do so. I'm not sure you chose to wait until now, why you chose to wait until now to say so. However, according to our attorneys and anyone else who is outside of the group who is against us, your actions were and still are unethical. You and Jacob are the only people who could have steered these events into an inquiry process that played out according to our bylaws and according to the laws of the state of Florida. That's what our attorneys, remember, the other attorneys, not the ARC attorneys that we had to get to step in that helped us with other corporate stuff. That's what our attorneys included in a 17-page introduction on fiduciary duty in the first letter they sent, which was addressed to you and Jacob specifically. In actuality, the way you acted was unethical and in breach of your fiduciary duties. Are you sure the church board is fully informing you of everything? Are they keeping you looped in on communication with our attorneys? What is important for me to know, just on a personal level, as someone who took a risk in trusting you, is this: are you in full agreement with the actions of the board? As Marcus stated, oh, wait till we get into Marcus Rowe, financial advisor. If yeah, he can advise you how to racketeer, embezzle. You know, I really trusted him. What a mistake. His later stated that you were, but yours and Jacob's signatures were not on the documents. She's going through these documents. Okay. If you were not in agreement, then don't you think you should have told us and them? You keep saying, stop the investigation. Okay, listen, everybody. You keep saying, stop the investigation, as if this is what Stovall has been asking for. That is never what he was asking for. He has not asked to stop the investigation even one time. He only asked that it be done according to the bylaws, in decency and in order. You and Jacob had the power to do that. You didn't do it. I can only assume you fully agree with the board's actions. In what universe does that look like love or advocating for us or ethical by any objective measure? Anyway, I see that you and I are at a complete impasse. I agree. It's not helpful to continue to communicate with one another. The truth will come out in the end. I forgive you. I did weeks ago, but I cannot understand your actions. But I cannot understand your actions or your mindset on these things in any other way than what they appear to be on the surface. Okay. Do y'all know how long did it take us to go through one text? You know, I got like 20 texts that are as damning or more damning than this one with Angela. Maybe more. I got ones with good speed, and I got ones with the ARC attorneys. You ever seen your attorneys openly acknowledge they're not going to go by the bylaws they created for you? Think about that. Are there any legal people in my own attorneys, church attorneys, who created my bylaws or the church's bylaws, who, of course, I've figured out were representing ARC, not me. I have them on public. I have them written. I have emails and texts where they are acknowledging they're not going to go by the bylaws they created. These are attorneys. All right, let's go to, I'm going to try to walk y'all through these emails. We're probably going to have to review them another time. Okay, so all that's going on. No, not that. What's this? Okay, here's Kristen R. Now, let me tell you, Kristen R is another ARC attorney. Never met her, didn't know who she was. I looked her up. I found out she came in and she was involved with ARC when another ARC leader, ARC pastor Josh Mahoney, was accused of, I can't say the word, the SA word, even like extreme. He said it was consensual. The woman in the church said no, it was forced and all this kind of stuff. Josh Mahoney was obviously married. He was an ARC leader. Chris promoted him to all kind of things. And so what happened when all this came out, Kristen R went down there. Dino was involved. ARC was involved. And what it looks like is when the girls started saying, when things started coming out, when things started coming out about what Dino was saying to the girl, things like, hey, you don't want to mess up the church. You don't want to make this public. When it started coming out that they offered the girl who was allegedly SA, not consensual. I mean, like, I don't know if it was 5 times, 10 times. It was numerous times. Guess what they offered her? $25,000 for some counseling. You know what they gave the predator? 75 grand. Helped recycling. There's the real Dino Rizzo for you. So Kristen R, by the way, look at this date. See, January 9th. She's going to be doing this for Dino and ARC in April, right? So here's Kristen R. Look what she says. It's January 9th. So now it's all go down. I'm going to show you the letter where they banned me from the property, all this kind of stuff. And she says, Pastor Stovall, please see correspondence sent in response to the letter from Jason Havens of Holland and Knight purporting to represent Celebration Church. They did. This is what, see, the ARC guys weren't expecting this. I had these Holland and Knight guys, and what they were working on was they were working on the infrastructure of the best way for Honey Lake Clinic, Honey Lake Farms, the church, North Stream, shared services, how to protect the assets of the church, like with the farm and clinic, to put those under separate LLCs. So if those they're just all kind of stuff they were advising us on. All right. And so when this all happened, they started acting like, well, who's Holland and Knight? So Holland and Knight are now writing the letter saying, what are y'all doing? You're breaking the bylaws. None of this is legit. None of this is legal. And so here comes Kristen R right before she goes and covers up the alleged covers up, hides the ARC SA case. She stops in to write me an email. Look at this. Please be advised that Celebration Church, watch this. I could just, okay, I need to chill. Let me chill. Okay. Please see correspondence below to letter from Jason Havens of Holland and Knight purporting to represent Celebration Church. Please be advised that Celebration Church has engaged the services of Nelson Mullins to proceed with its investigation and otherwise represent its interest. As you're no longer in good standing with the church and to ensure the integrity of our investigation, do not contact any former staff or leadership of Celebration Church. All further correspondence and communication concerning the church should be directed to me and my partner, Lee Wedikin III. Look at this. In addition, and until further notice, do not go to any Celebration Church campus or facility unless you're given written approval by our firm. Any violation of this specific demand will be considered trespassing, and law enforcement authorities will be contacted. January 9th, I'm the senior pastor, right? Founder, plenary authority. My name is on everything. I'm responsible. I'm liable for everything. These attorneys come in. You're going to figure it out. It's because they're ARC attorneys. They come in and say, we represent Celebration Church. And I hire our attorneys. Who are you? So they come in, tell me the attorneys that I hire are not the church's attorneys, that these attorneys who I've never heard of, that they're the church attorneys with no question, no anything, no any real investigation, come in and ban me from the property that I'm liable for, that my name is on, and threaten me with arrest and say I'm going to be trespassing. You want to talk about harass? Well, no, it would be, that's a threat. It's completely illegal. It's completely unethical. And who made you church? Who made you? This is so important, guys. Listen, I know I'm harping on this. I'm going somewhere with this. This is how ARC does it. How did these Nelson Mullins attorneys come to represent the church that I have plenary authority? There has never been an attorney hired without my permission. I know how important they are to a church. And these people tell me they represent the church. Somebody else hired them. It wasn't me. And then ban me from my own church and threaten me with arrest with nothing but this email. Here's how they do it. Okay. So then she says this. Oh, I can't see this. Okay. Here's the correspondence. This law firm has been retained by Who? Who retained you? Who from Celebration Church said, I have the power now, and I'm hiring you guys as our new attorneys, and you see the bylaws, Stovall's plenary authority and everything. What? That doesn't matter. We're hiring you. Can you ban him from the property and threaten him with arrest? Of course that didn't happen. These are ARC attorneys. That's why Kristen shows up down at. And Middlebrook, it turns out later in Wedekin's report, he says Middlebrook and Goodspeed sent them in. These are all ARC attorneys. Middlebrook and Goodspeed, my attorneys who wrote my bylaws, sent these guys in and condoned their illegal behavior and told them how to destroy the very bylaws that they wrote. 100% fact. That is what ARC does. ARC uses their attorney. Go to their conference. They'll be promoting them. Oh, yeah, use this guy as your attorney. Use that guy as your attorney. I'm telling you right now, the last attorney you want to have in a 100-mile radius involved with your church or ministry is an ARC attorney. They'll say they represent you. They'll represent ARC. And the things that they do, in my opinion, I think you'll agree when you look through these emails, are so reckless and so illegal. It's like they use the law to create lawlessness. That's how I would describe it. You know, I'll be honest. These attorneys are very good at what they do. And if you don't have an attorney that understands what they're dealing with in terms of what's underneath ARC, well, this isn't just one church in a cover. There is a system of corruption with powerful people that need to be protected. And These attorneys are very, very good at what they do. They know psyops well, and they know all the tactics. They know all the tools. And you go get just a regular civil attorney, try to go up against these guys, unless that attorney is willing to hold them accountable to every single thing that they do. And most attorneys, it's just too exhausting. It's too exhausting. And they're just going to start going with the flow, you know. So look what she says. This is a letter I hadn't showed you. It's just they wrote in saying how none of this is right. None of this is legal. What in the world's going on? You know, all this kind of stuff. We disagree with your interpretation of the law and the governing documents, especially under the circumstances. Listen to this, y'all. I believe you do not have all of the relevant and critical information. Further, your email fails to take into consideration the very real, tangible, and legitimate concerns that the church has as a whole with regard to past undertakings and financial entanglements of Stovall Weems. Do you know the Holland and Knight attorneys saw everything? They were restructuring the church. They saw all the facts. Who did what? Like, who are these people? What relevant facts? Like, what about the embezzler? Like, look at this. But you look, your interpretation of the law and the governing documents. And now look what she's going to go to. You don't have all the information. There are concerns. In other words, let's get away from the law. Let's get into, let's sidetrack from what the law says, which these attorneys are great at. We're going to get into, you know, I hate to use this word. I'm going to try not to use it. But if you understand personalities and personality profile disorder, whatever like that, you know, it's the thing when you're having a conversation with someone with one of those personality disorders, and you say, man, I can't believe I just saw you come in here. I just checked my cameras at the workplace. I saw you come in here and steal a bunch of money out of the cash register. And that person says, what's wrong with you? You're so nosy. What is your deal? Like, are you this nosy? You know, that's what, and get you into defending yourself off a side issue. On a side issue that takes you away from what should be most relevant here, which is the law and the bylaws that have a very healthy way to do an investigation, not illegal seizure, banning from the property, threatening trespassing, and all that. Look what she says. With regard to your statement, look what, here's why they watch. Here's why I shouldn't. Here's the real issue. One man does not control the current and future of the church. I would agree with that. That's why you have bylaws. That's why you follow bylaws. However, they're about to give the church to one man. They're about to promote the embezzler. With regard to your statement that you or your firm represents the church, it appears either that you're representing the Weems individually. No, wasn't that. Unfamiliar with recent discussions, including discussions concerning Stovall Weems, to agree to separate, to agree to separate from the church. Please confirm the scope of your representation. Oh. Well, looks like these attorneys have been sitting around just making up stuff. People say, oh, yeah, he wants to separate. Oh, he didn't want to be here either. Never asked me. Never. Our attorneys, not one question, not one phone call, not anything, not one text, nothing. But evidently, there's all this information out there about me that these people have seem to be discussing long before Jacob and Angela were put on the board. Okay. This is really important. Okay. Look at this one. Inasmuch, I'm sorry, y'all, I can't read this. Inasmuch as this email is being transmitted at almost 9 p.m. on Saturday evening, we respectfully you know why? Because they heard I was going to church the next day. I was actually supposed to do like a 3-part series on the future of our missions and talk about what that looks like in the future. There's a whole schedule, with me over the next couple of months. Look at this. It says, we respectfully convey and advise that Stovall Weems that number one, he not communicate directly with any current church leadership or employees while our investigation is ongoing. Gag order. Silence him quick. Don't let him talk to anyone. He's not going to be questioned. We've got to silence him fast. And not appear at or otherwise visit any of the church locations for services tomorrow. The church that I preached at for 23 years. And until the investigation is concluded. Look, any interference with the investigation look, this is what I need you guys to see. This is maybe where you could help me. I'm sorry. I know I'm going to have to end this. We're going to look at this. Any interference with the investigation and continued string of written and verbal threats. This is talking about me. Evidently, I have a written string. I have a thread of all of these written threats. And there's a bunch of verbal threats out there somewhere. Look at this. Will be interpreted as a conscious and concerted effort to hinder and interfere with ongoing operations of the church and its efforts to secure the financial future and ministry. Yep. They surely didn't want me involved with the financial future because I had already uncovered the stuff that they were doing. Look, we'll be reaching out to Stovall Weems shortly to begin initial interviews. If you represent Stovall Weems, please immediately advise, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Never reached out. No interviews. Nothing. I'm going over these in detail because if a pastor watches this, I'm going to tell you this is how they do it with their attorneys. And you've got to know who you're dealing with. Look, even if you're a pastor and you're in ARC and you're like, well, whatever happened, I like the fellowship and all that kind of stuff. You need to get them to disclose their constitution, not just the one they have now, the former one, that you need to understand what they can do. By the way, ARC didn't plant Celebration. Celebration was here before them. But what they're going to come in and do, here's the psyops. See, they're coming and separate. They're trying to say, well, there's the church and there's you. I understand. I'm a separate individual from Celebration Church. But I'm the founder, the church, the bylaws, everything was birthed out of the vision that the Lord gave you. All of a sudden, Celebration's like this separate entity. Do you see? So understand individually, of course. Now, it's why you have bylaws and budgets and all those kind of things. I'm one person in the congregation, but if you read our bylaws, I represent the membership. So by separating me illegally, by they coming with the psyops, the church is one thing. We're coming out of nowhere to represent the church. You're bad and you're evil and you're like just an employee or something like that. That is such a psyop to try to create the language and create the things where like this is all of there's several things that it's like this. I hire the attorneys. Who are you? Like the real conversation is here. I don't know who illegally hired y'all, but they're fired and y'all are fired. That's the real conversation. This is theater. This is psyops theater. This communication may obtain information that's proprietary, privileged, or confidential. Not anymore. All this was sent to me. This is all me before any investigation. And there's more. Wait. This is the letter from Holland and Knight that they're all referring to, where they just say, y'all are all violating the bylaws. None of this is legit. Grow up. And but I don't want to go into that right now. But that's what they're referring to. Okay, what's this? Oh, here's where they announced the investigation on January 15th. So look at this. The suspension, they come in and try to suspend me. Oh, is this when they changed the bylaws in the cover of Night? So anyway, they just come in, they send me a letter. You're suspended completely out of our bylaw structure. You're not in good standing. Pursuant to section 707, they completely pull that out of context. But look, I'm not only suspended from Celebration Church. This includes CCJI Ministries. Okay. Now, let me tell you about CCJI Ministries. This was this was Honey Lake Farms. And this is why you're going to see in future things, they try to get in there and suspend me. Nord Stream was Carrie's little company. She wanted to do scaled services and these restorative community developments, like instead of having 4 different lawn care services, everybody share one. Instead of having 4 different HR services, we have one HR. It saves everybody money. That kind of stuff that she could never get. The people we had to do like stuff like that. In Wedikin's letter, they want to remove Nord Stream, take over Honey Lake Farms. They have nothing to do with those things. So anyway, here's where they suspend me from everything. Okay, this is, I've got to find one email before we get into this one. Okay. Or I don't think we're going to be able to get into it. I got to save these because we're going on 2 hours and I can't rush through them because every single one of them is just loaded. Let me see if I want to show you this email from Kristen R. I don't know where these things went. I had way more slides than these. Here's where they do the illegal bylaws, or our attorneys writing them. Okay, I got to stop. Wait. Maybe this is it. Notice of investigation. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Oh man, wait till you see what they say to Carrie. I can't do it. I can't do it. It's too much. We're going to be here till midnight. I'm going to save this one. Man, I need to find this email. I want to show y'all something. I highlighted in another email. I'm going to show it to you right here. Do y'all see this email? csw@weemsgroup.org. csw@weemsgroup.org. So when Kristen R. Reaches out in whatever this is called. Do you see this email? She sends it to this email, csw@weemsgroup.org. Okay. The reason you don't see my LSU fan email in here, which was the email that she should send it to, is because before we were ever notified of anything, they took it. They cut us off. They shut us down. They sealed up. I don't know what they did with it. 23 years of all the church documents, all the church evidence, all of my emails, all of Carrie's emails, our personal stuff. I'll show you in a second. Carrie's medical information, all of our intellectual property. Really important things. You want to know another thing? My signature stamp. The signature stamp that Lisa would use from time to time. I never got that back. Somehow, when all of this happened, what happened to my signature stamp? Let me show you some other things. So she sends it to my Chasbo at Proton Mail. That was my other email. But she also copies csw@weemsgroup.org. csw@weemsgroup.org. I've never sent an email from there. In fact, I don't even know. I've never received. I've never sent. I've never signed into that email domain. In fact, we didn't know it existed until our cyber forensic report, when we saw in the fall of 2021 that Gabby's Carrie's assistant, who was on the ground working for the board to do a bunch of cybercrime with them, till Gabby mentioned, hey, I've opened these weemsgroup.org, like in passing, real matter of fact. Of course, we just didn't even pay attention to it at the time. It was in the middle of a whole different discussion. But we found them in the cyber forensics. And if Carrie wouldn't have sent it off Gabby's computer before all this stuff, we'd have never got it. And by the way, we got the report from the cyber forensics expert, which is just loaded with crime. But the other thing is, when it was received back at the church, we were told that, yeah, it showed up, but somehow the box had broke or something and it damaged the computer and it was destroyed, so it was thrown away. And I can get somebody to testify to that. But here's what I want to say. This csw@weemsgroup.org. Remember the string of threats that she writes about in here? Written and verbal threats. I want to know, first of all, I want to say this. If you've ever gotten an email from csw@weemsgroup.org, and we found other emails in our name that I'm not going to get into tonight, but this one's really important because somehow the attorney got it. And the attorney said I was making written and verbal threats. There were also people that have told us, yeah, we heard threats. And when we asked what was the threat, they're like, I don't know. It's just like in the atmosphere, like making threats. What was I threatening? To do the investigation according to the bylaws? And so this email right here, I want to let y'all know this. This is going to end up being a big deal in the cybercrime because this email right here was kept alive, the domain, weemsgroup.org. It was kept alive. It was moved to different servers. At one point, it was moved offshore to a notoriously cited cyber criminal malware server. Whoever was in charge of it did certificate flooding. And when we filed the case against ARC in July 2023, finally, boop, it's deactivated. What were they doing with CSW at weemsgroup.org for 18 months? And why did they make sure and keep it activated, move it around through different servers, and only deactivate it right after I filed the ARC case? This is going to end up being major. All the things, or they use this Weems Group name. And we found several stuff with this. And we've done a bunch of research, but I'm just telling you, that's a big deal. And so my theory about this is that probably Tim, because it would have to be like I'm just kind of thinking of everyone's role. Tim's like the public manipulator, ritual person, liar. So I would think that someone like Tim Timberlake fabricated emails from me or in a thread with my email to show that I was somehow making threats. I don't know what the threats were, obviously, because I didn't make them or I never sent an email. And the other thing I want to know is this. Here's the other question. Y'all tell me. How in the world is Kristen R., ARC's enforcer of illegal tactics, how in the world does Kristen R. have this email? I think I'm not going to get into what I think about the whole cyber aspect of this, but I'll say this. It's shady, man. And so, okay, we're going to do the last thing. I'm already here. It's 10 o'clock. You got to see this email to my poor wife. Last one. Are y'all with me? It's a long. This is, okay, y'all, listen to me. What I've shared tonight and the fraction of these things I'm showing y'all, this is a fraction. It's just, this is baby food with them. Whatever's happened to ARC, whatever's happened to Chris, whatever blackmail mechanisms are in place, these are really dark. These are dark, evil people. And I don't want to get back on it, but there's so many similarities, as I said, with Epstein and with there's a lot of connections. Wait till we show you the Les Wexner foundations and who was benefiting and all that. But what you do see, let me tell you what Epstein mastered. And I'm telling you, Hodges and some of these church leaders have mastered the same thing. And you don't self-learn this. I think you try to do it, in the sense of you want to hang out with people that can boost your image or boost your reputation, but not like these guys do it. What Epstein was a master at, as we see with the Yale example, Epstein was a master at reputational laundering. So what he would do is he would go to these prestigious places and he would give them money and develop relationships. Those guys have a way of seeing who has secrets, see who can be blackmailed. Maybe some can, maybe some can't. But at the end of the day, what Epstein was the master at, Yale, Harvard, MIT, you see him with all the politicians and select, he would, before we really knew about him. But it's called reputational laundering. In other words, Epstein was launder his reputation as things were coming out. He was fighting things or stuff like this. He would launder his reputation by having prominent people with a good reputation or good, upstanding in society. He would get those people to endorse him, get those people to be with him, get those people in some way and launder his reputation through him, just like money laundering. Dirty money comes out this side. Oh, it looks clean. So he used these friends and associates to launder his reputation. I'm telling you, some of these church guys, Hodges especially, they are masters at reputational laundering. And what you see is, you see it with Tim, you see it with some of the other ARC pastors, but Hodges, some of those guys at Bethel before they're still trying to do it. I just don't know how long it can last over there or at IHOP. But what you see is, like, here's what happens. All these things come out. What the guy does, what the pastor does, is he ignores it and makes sure that the people that are doing his book deals, the people that are doing his book deals, conferences, all that kind of stuff, all that stays intact. So what he's doing is something comes out, the congregation or people that follow are like, hey man, aren't you going to address this? What's going on? Is everything okay? And all that. Just any normal person, any person with any intellectual honesty, normal emotional intelligence type of thing, they're going to come out and acknowledge it and say, hey, however, there's nothing to this. Our board's, this or whatever like that. But these guys, what they do is sometimes they'll lie. Like Hodges came out when we filed this case, said, we look forward to proving all these things untrue in court, turns around, does the exact opposite, runs for his life and spends millions of ministry dollars on not ever testifying and begging the court not to look into it. Okay. But then he just ignores it. They'll just ignore it. But what the congregation does is like, well, man, he's still doing his Maxwell book deal. And so-and-so just gave, $5 million to this. And he just got promoted this way. And so that's reputational laundering. And the pastor has to have, just like Epstein, the pastor has to have other people whose reputations have not been soiled to validate them and stand with them. But church leaders do it the same way. Okay, let me go. So look, here's Carrie. So you saw the things about Lee saying, you're banned, you can't talk to anybody, can't say anything, can't, all the ridiculous, I don't even know what this is. I don't even know what I call it. So here's Carrie. So first of all, Carrie wasn't even involved in any of this. Carrie was never, her names never come up in anything. Okay. So she writes Lee, and she says, let me see if I go back here. Okay, yeah. So she writes Lee, and she says, are these specifically directed to Stovall, or can you please send the original document where these guidelines are directed to me? Okay. Start up here. I'm so sorry, y'all. Let me just see where these threads. Oh, man. I'm just going to read them. Look. So Carrie's asking, all this stuff that you put on Stovall, is that directed at me too? Like, can't talk to anybody and all that? And so Lee says, yes, they're directed to both of you, but yes, they were included in my prior to love letter to Stovall. Of course they weren't. You'll see that. Okay. So that's what she's asking you. I'm sorry, just kind of get the gist of it. She's like, all these commands that you're going to see here are the basic instructions. Okay. So Carrie's saying, do these apply to me too? I've never been mentioned. Does this apply to me? And Lee said, yeah, they do. And I included that in the ones I sent to Stovall. So look, preserve, protect, and maintain. Do not alter, amend, modify, blah, blah, blah. All documents relating to church business, including all documents that relate in any way to any financial transactions or business relationships, directly or indirectly, to Celebration Church. This includes emails. They have access to the church bank accounts. They have access to all the wires. They have access, which I never had access to any of the money. At least I have my signature stamp. She did all that, like, keep track of what? So look, do not contact or attempt to communicate in any way with any church executives, staff, employees, volunteers, or trustees. Volunteers. You know how many volunteers we had? It's like half the church. In other words, you can't speak to the basically, yeah. Wow, volunteers? It's like 5,000 people. Please direct all communications to my attention. Do not attempt to access any church property or systems. Look, except that you may continue residing in the parsonage during the pendency of the investigation. What? Oh, so you're making... I'm just going to move on. But look at this one. Do not disclose. Y'all listen. This is very important. Do not disclose the existence or nature of this investigation to any other person. Are y'all seeing this? Except your immediate family members and your attorneys or advisors. This investigation is intended to be confidential, to minimize disruption and reputational. They've already slandered me to oblivion, and he's telling me this. And cooperate fully with the investigate. What? I don't even know what the investigation is under than all this psyops, illegal stuff. I don't even know who you are. Like, look at this, though. Who says this, y'all? Who says this? Do not disclose the existence to any other person. The existence of this investigation to any other. Is there a nuclear secret? Is who in the world? And they're about to put everything in the media, in the paper. obvious public relate. And right now, Tim is texting every single person in the world. They've already obliterated me. And then they're about to put all these lies in the paper. Do not discuss the existence of this investigation. Oh my gosh. Okay, I gotta go. I might be reading this backward. So here's Carrie saying, Lee, I've never received any direct correspondence or instructions. Here's Carrie being nice. I'll defer to your expertise of advice in the matter. I'm reading this backwards. This is going on. And so he says, yeah, it's directed to you, and you can't discuss the existence or anything either. Talk to any of your friends. All of our friends served, at least, in the church. Now look at this. I'm going to finish up on this one. Miss Weems, as you know, our firm represents the church in its pending investigation. You just see what date is this. We have advised the church to discontinue your access to church assets. Wait, let me see this. Wait, let me go back. Here's Carrie. I read this backwards, y'all. This is why I gotta stop. Okay. Look, here's Carrie. Hello, Krista. I sent this email to Waylon on Sunday afternoon. I've received no response. I believe his refusal to accommodate my request with no grounds for doing so is in violation of HR compliance policies. I believe my request is more than reasonable and should be accommodated. It is not difficult for Stephen Paredes. Oh gosh, it's getting late. I need to be careful or I'm going to say things like, oh, if Stephen Paredes only knew where his name is. Oh, the emails of Stephen Paredes that I can almost guarantee you he never sent. I hope he didn't or he's in big trouble. This is the IT guy, Stephen Paredes. He's going to end up being a lot more involved than he thought he was. You know, I think there's a lot of people uses his name to hide some things. But anyway, it's not difficult for Stephen to verify that I only access my personal information, which qualifies as my personal property. It is especially disturbing and distressing to me that I specifically stated that I had urgent need. Y'all listen to this. I had urgent need of my personal financial and medical information, and that Waylon seems to have no regard for the potential liability he is putting both the church and himself at risk for. Perhaps I'm wrong about this being a violation of compliance, and if so, please kindly reply and let me know. If I'm not wrong, it might be helpful to educate Waylon on HR compliance matters, as he is apparently uninformed. Well, what Carrie doesn't know at this time is Waylon's been converted to a Scientologist, but it's another discussion. I would also like to request that the church's attorney be informed of Waylon's actions in order to advise Waylon of any risk he is undertaking in his actions representing the church in his role and function of executive pastor. So what Carrie wants is she's got medical information, she's got financial information, she's got insurance information, and that she just needs that's connected to her celebration.org email that she just needs to get. It's like anybody would, like any HR is. You can here's an hour, get your personal things, that kind of thing. Okay. So she says, I'm taking the liberty of copying Waylon. I'll forward you my follow-up email. Okay. I understand that I'm discouraged from contacting you, but I'm willing to take the risk as I'm being wrongfully denied access to my personal property. I would appreciate a reply, Krista. If you feel uncomfortable responding to me directly for fear of reprisal, perhaps you could encourage Waylon to become compliant and respond to me directly. Okay. Here's the answer. Who's this from? Lee. What does Carrie want? Her medical information and some of her personal financial information. There's things in there like health insurance information, that kind of stuff. Here's the response. Ms. Williams, as you know, our firm represents the church in its, they love using this word, investigation. We have advised the church to discontinue your access to church assets, including email in connection with our investigation. There's no violation of HR compliance policies. To the contrary, emails housed on the church servers are not your personal property, as explained in the following excerpts from the computer, email, and internet usage policy in the employee handbook. Look at this. Email is not guaranteed to be private or confidential. All electronic communications are Celebration Church property. She needed the email to access the cloud. She wasn't writing her medical information on the, do you see what I'm saying? And I promise you, it might be church property that church, if it is on an email, yeah, the church can keep a copy. You can't, whatever's on an email, you can't take that maybe away from the church, I guess. But you absolutely can have your email, just like if you have your own personal coffee cup on a church desk, the desk is property. You can get your coffee cup. Look, therefore, Celebration Church reserves the right to examine. Listen what he's telling my wife. Listen. She's like, can I please get my medical information, my financial information? Take 2 seconds. Look what he's saying. Therefore, Celebration reserves the right to examine, monitor, and regulate email messages, directories, and files, as well as internet usage. Now look at this. Does this need to be in here? Also, the internet is not secure, so don't assume that others cannot read or possibly alter your messages. Are y'all seeing this? This is from this arch attorney who supposedly represents Celebration Church. Don't assume that others cannot read or possibly alter your messages when you just told her you'll never see your messages again. You'll never see your emails again. You'll never see your medical information again. You'll never see your financial, everything that is yours, personal or not, it is ours. And, maybe somebody's altering some of your messages. Maybe people are in there monitoring you. I don't know. Who does this? Look, if you have specific requests for documents or emails until further notice, all that kind of stuff. Okay. So, Carrie, you can't have your medical info. And as far as we know, your messages are altered, and who knows what you're saying to other people that's being spread around. Last one. Look, here's Kristen R. She's coming in after this Carrie email. Mrs. Weems, I've re-reviewed the emails and wanted to clarify some things. In case we were missing each other with meaning and messaging. What, like you're threatening to send crazy emails on behalf of her to other people and she'll never know and she'll never find out. And by the way, the internet's not secure and you might be being monitored and hacked and all that kind of stuff. First, I assure you that we are not looking into any of your medical records. Look, as part of our investigation. Oh, thanks. Do you need to say that? Carrie never said that. She never said, Don't look into, what are y'all? Wanted to clear that up in case you were concerned about any personal health information being reviewed or shared, like to First Coast News, all around the world, multiple languages, things like that. Do you think that she might be concerned with something like that? Don't want you to be concerned. Also, look at this. Look at this. Are you ready? If there is an urgent medical need, for some record, you cannot obtain a copy from your healthcare provider. In other words, yeah, we could push a button and you get your personal stuff and all that, but you need to get to work contacting your health provider and all that. Look, if there's an urgent medical need and you can't obtain a copy from your healthcare provider or through any other means, please call me anytime on my cell phone. And I'll do my very best to locate that for you. If led in the right direction, we'll do it with the utmost discretion. Kristen R.'s name is on the Nelson Mullins report. Ripping Carrie to shreds, lying about her, twisting medical information. Carrie has an urgent medical need, y'all. Hey, don't worry. She can call Kristen R. You have an urgent medical need and need something from the medical information that we're refused to giving back to you. Don't worry, Carrie. You don't need to call family or friends. You can't speak to any of your friends at the church. They're volunteers. Don't worry, you can call me. You can trust me, Kristen R. I'll handle it with the utmost discretion, just like putting it all in the News for Jacks media and slandering you into oblivion. Kristen R. ought to be ashamed. She ought to be ashamed of herself for doing things like this. She's a woman too. What if that would happen to you? Kristen R. You know, maybe some of these people should stop trying to cover up ARC's alleged sex crimes and all their predatory behavior. Maybe, I don't know. Is there anything in the Florida bar ethics, like taking some courses on women's rights and ethics and things like that? Because, you know, if someone did struggle with depression from time to time, this is what you'd want to do to them. And then put it in the media and shame them to death. ARC loves that stuff, y'all. This is what they love. They love this. I'm sure they're listening tonight, or they will listen to this. I'm telling you, they'll get a rush out of this. Normal people will be appalled. They'll be like, yeah. That's what it is. They get off on it, you know? Okay. I have a really good clip, but I'm not
connected to a ministry. It was a close ministry.
This is a whole nother story, and I've got several others. I want to show this one tonight, but I'm not gonna, because I want to save this. How long is this? Because it kind of gets us into, I don't know. Do you want to see it? God, it's 10:30. How long is this? I'm going to show y'all this anyway. It's just, this is one of many things because we're talking about how ARC does this stuff. So I've kind of shown you, I left out a bunch of stuff, but I've shown you some of these emails, and now they come in with psyops and illegally take over the church, and you got to have really unique attorneys. Number one, willing to do this kind of stuff. Number two, trained in this type of psyops. And ARC has to have them. And they're really good at what they do, you know. So they're good at destroying people and enjoying it. So watch this clip. This will be our final clip of the night because it does line up with this, and it gives you a perspective of kind of another way. Okay. All right, let's play it.
Associate who had been unfaithful to their spouse for a few years. Not only did he cheat on his spouse, but, you know, it was the lies, the manipulation, and the willingness to destroy other people to cover it. That's really the much actually bigger issue. I was, you know, obviously completely heartbroken and felt betrayed, but just shocked. Then I saw one of the key leaders with the ARC network. So this pastor was actually submissive to restoration. I say restoration, I mean to the Lord. He was in the process of wanting to get divorced, and he was willing to submit to pastoral restoration until someone from the ARC network said to him, they go, "What? They're trying to take you out of ministry?" They go, "What you did was nothing." They said, we've restored hundreds of pastors who have done way worse than you. The guy literally said, "We'll get you back in the pulpit in 1 year." Not only that, but that particular network and another very large network apparently were still supporting him financially around the board's back.
Was that all the clip? Okay. Yeah, we're going to look at that and some other of these cases as we kind of lay it out how ARC does this stuff and how they, you know, predators and people that do bad stuff, they're at a premium for ARC to promote and to rescue. Okay. It was a lot, y'all. It was a lot tonight. I went way over. I'm learning. I'm a one-man show. And do y'all, you want me to come on tomorrow night and we do some questions to all this? It's late. But if there's a couple, there was a bunch earlier, but well, are you talking about Sidley Alston, who their clients were the nation states, Chinese surveillance firms, the guy that did the shady thing for the deal with Epstein and Epstein's offshore $6.2 billion fund. Is that what? And represent all types of global things. Why would they be so interested in a case involving ARC? Not their usual lane. That's what I'm saying. It's not. Silly, the Yale Free Clinic doing civil liberties stuff, I can absolutely. But this, for them and the Beckett Fund, this is a real precedent-setting, shady, lots of criminal allegations, lots of bad stuff. ARC's reputation is not great. And that's why I have those emails, which I got to send, by the way. I was supposed to send last week. I got their emails because I had some people look at them. I wanted to make some corrections to really hope to try. I want to get a response from them. And that is, if these are substantiated and they went to bat, trying to help these guys get immunity, are they going to come out and say, "Hey, we should have done that case. There were things we didn't know. Our attorneys overlooked the actual claims by the Weems," that kind of thing. So that's what I'm saying. It's suspicious. It could all be a coincidence. All the what I look at is patterns. Here's what I know. There's the public, there's the lawsuits. Then there's what's happened to Carrie and I since 2019 up until today with the insane psycho surveillance, all types of dark harassment, all types of things that you're like, okay, how do you do that? Like, how do you cover this up? How do you change this report? What would have to be the inside mechanism to do that? How are these? It's like an inside look into the world of the powerful, corrupt. And then it's like, well, how's that connected to what's underneath Ark and Celebration? Well, then, you look at the nonprofit, you look at all the other stuff coming out, you look at all the parallels between celebrity, political, and church world. You look at the reputational laundering, you look at the promotion of predators. It's all the same thing. You look at the history of how all this works through the nonprofits. You can look at Turning Point USA. You can look at what's going on at Bethel. You can look at what's going on in the Church of God. You can look at what's going on with IOP and all these things. You can look back at what happened at Liberty with the CIA and Sun Young Moon funding the whole thing. Like, that's what I see. There's no way that these guys are spending, unless they're in some sick, dark web club, unless this thing is just, they're making money off of Carrie's image. Feels Epstein-esque, like attack the whistleblower. I would like to meet with you to give you some people or resources that may help you. Well, Christy Carnes, are you friend or foe? We're putting it up. I would love anything that could help. And I'd really appreciate it. I think I put my email up on the YouTube site. The best, in fact, I'm going to post a comment. Okay. This is the best way to communicate with me with things like that. And I need help with this research, y'all. It takes so long, and then all the stuff I have going on with the legal, and I'm trying to get the YouTube operation. I'm trying to get, I'm trying to expand the online presence. Like, I'm trying to do what I feel the Lord's calling me to do in this season. And it can be challenging. So any help that anybody could give would be great. Yeah, that's a good question. Nonprofit, can you walk how the board's authority is supposed to work under Florida law? Yes. So the board's authority is, by Florida law, is determined by the church or nonprofit that creates the bylaws. So in our bylaws, as long as the board of trustees or board of directors, there's 10 different ways that you can do it. Churches do it all kind of different ways. They have one board, they have three boards. It's how the governance is run. So as long as there is a recognized board of directors or board of trustees, that's what's required by Florida law, so that you can get your 501c3 and register as a corporation. And so that component right there is what's required by bylaws. The power that those trustees or board of directors have in a church is completely up to the bylaws, how they're made. And so they just have to have they have to have a role, or they have to be able to approve in what would be the corporate affairs of the church. So how ours were set up, just in case you're wondering, is number one, I was the head of the trustee board. Okay. I was the chairman of the board. And those guys, our bylaws are set up as I have that team that is supposed to help. What they would do is they would approve the top budget. Okay. They couldn't set it. They couldn't say where to spend the money, but they would have to approve, like, okay, are we going to spend 20 million or 15 million, whatever the high budget, they would approve that. And then also they would be responsible for, not responsible, but they would, any property or things like that, you know, they would be involved in those things. Our boards were very relational. That's another thing with churches. Like, we made tons of decisions. There's never a formal vote. You know, when things were good, we were all hanging out. We would talk, we would text. And so much was decided on not a formal vote. Sometimes there needs to be minutes. Sometimes there's not. Sometimes Lisa would do it. But our board of trustees, we were not a board run church. It was a complete lie that Wedekind and then put in the paper. And that's straight out of our bylaws, that we're the type of church, like most our churches are, where their bylaws, that we're senior pastor and founder led. And you have these overseers, presbyters on one side, and you have the trustees on the other side. And then the third arm is the pastoral team. So think of it as like I had three teams. I had my presbyters that were overseeing my health and the churches, right? That was John and Dino. That's why they forsook that, and they had to they did the opposite. They subverted their role and help ensure criminal activity and install bad actors. And then there's the trustees. Those are day-to-day guys. You know, you talk about the budgets, you talk about the buildings and things like that. We had one board meeting a year until I think 2020, when all this weird stuff started happening. And the reason we had that is because we were very relational in all that we did. So we saw each other all the time. We texted all the time. We talked about stuff all the time. But there was that's how that's how our church board is, and that's how a lot of church boards are. And honestly, that's how they should be, because we're a spiritual body, you know. So I hope that helps. Yeah. I have there's three. There's some bigger channels that I haven't personally reached out. Other people have reached out to them and then told me they reached out. And a couple of them do have interest. I had three big, if you want to call it, interview, documentary type, whatever's in December. I postponed them because I wanted to start this. And whenever I do those things, I have to prepare for the backlash, you know. And so I wanted to start getting our story out, because I could do 150 episodes, and it seems like there's just a lot happens with 8 years or 7 years of military grade crime and psyops. There's a lot to talk about, you know. So I'm going to be there. I want to be able to have enough on my channel where people can get a sense of things, because it's a lot to explain. I would agree. I see that comment there. Yeah. When it's like this. Some guys that I found out, like, if they have greed if they're greedy, so many people use church as a front, whatever, they get in those environments, and there can be a lot of temptation for them. I agree. And I would say Lisa Stewart, our former CFO, she created a criminal environment. She did. And she did that because she did that through, looking back now, I'll say it this way. Looking back now, I think someone who was a criminal or someone that has been involved with shady or embezzlement stuff before, I think seeing how Lisa presented numbers, could never get the numbers right, would obfuscate, could never, where's the balance, like all that kind of stuff. I think people like that would see, oh yeah, she's doing something. She's doing something. And then that would give them leverage to get in on it, So, but we'll find out. And that's like the reputational laundering, like Rob Hoskins and One Hope Ministries, which I completely respect. Bob, his dad, and man, we gave a ton of money to those guys. But the fact that I would say more than reputational laundered, I would say that like he really helped shield Lisa. That's why I think Rob is involved. Rob Hoskins is involved, because I don't think knowing the Hoskins that they would have on their website someone that is in court as an agent. She's in the federal case with ARC, in court as an agent of ARC that embezzled millions and millions of dollars. And because we don't know what the real total is, or even how long she's been doing it, and who was all benefiting and who was she in cahoots with, I mean, we know, I don't know how there was initiate. Did more people come in? Was this coming from the underworld, so to speak, like we talked about? I don't know. But Lisa Stewart, when it's all said and done, she could, if you look at the biggest church embezzlements in U.S. history, I think, I'm not talking about like, they made a church hotel, or, they had all these different kind of Ponzi's or whatever they had going. I'm talking about like an employee in the church that embezzled cash. I think the biggest one in church history is 11 million. That's not scams and Ponzi's and all these other things that are kind of the pastor or somebody's using their influence to. I'm talking about like taking the cash out of this bank account, church bank account, and moving it to another one that you would have control over, right? And hiding it. And so if the biggest one's 11 million, I mean, Lisa's could be 8 million. So maybe it's 5, I don't know. But what I'm saying is it's up there. So that's the risk these people are willing to take. Yeah, one hope. We'll just, yeah, she got all these criminal allegations in criminal court. We'll see how it works out. Maybe she won't be the biggest embezzler in church history. Maybe she'll be like number 4. Allegedly. So those are the things that, it's how they all have to work together, and it's how a lot of people have to benefit. There's no question, to do this kind of thing, you've got to get a lot of people on board. You've got to work it for a couple of years, and there's got to be a bigger purpose. There's a bigger purpose than, as horrible as illegally seizing an institution and destroying a community of faith, and a pastor and his wife, or, whatever. That's horrible. But I don't think that was I think there's an even larger purpose. And like we said, if they just wanted to steal all that stuff, then they would have stopped when we resigned. But the real purpose is to destroy us. And the only reason that they could continue to want to do that to this day is because something can come open in a future case, the cybercrime, the federal case, that exposes a large, powerful, corrupt network, So, okay. Are we good, y'all? I'm going to pray us out. It's almost midnight. I'll get better at these things. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. And I really appreciate your support. I'm going to have a GoFundMe, a GoFundMe page for the legal and a support page, and then researchers. I can give you a bunch to research, and because some of it's like, I got someone that can help me research, like the clip that you just saw, like very much church stuff like that. But I'm getting into these other things now with Epstein and the Art connection and the Sidley connection and Beckett and Les Wexner Foundation. And then that ties in, I'm not even going to say it. I'm not even going to say it. But there's a lot. There's just a lot. And I need help, and I can give you the stuff and point you in the right direction. And yeah. So Father, we thank you for our time together. Lord, you say have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. Lord, we're all just trying to do our part in standing, standing for truth. And we're all trying to do our part in advocating justice. And I thank you for those who are not afraid to do what's right, stand for justice, and truth, even when it personally is, even when they're going to not benefit. And in many times they're going to lose friends or money or opportunity for standing with truth and for justice. And so I give you thanks for them. And I pray, Lord, that at the right time, you really get this message out. And I thank you for all the open doors that are coming in. And I thank you for people who care about your church, care about truth, and want to see your house restored in the mighty name of Jesus, in the mighty name of Yeshua. Amen. Okay, everybody, that is a wrap. Oh, and the giving QR code, that's what that duck is. It's a duck stamp, mallard duck stamp. No, that's a giving QR code to Stillborn Wings Ministries, and I really appreciate that. And like and subscribe. And I'll circle back with you guys later. My email is on the YouTube channel, and I also put it in the chat. Okay, guys, God bless.